Hello, my name's Stuart and welcome to Twin Flame Network channel. Thanks for anybody that's listening or is just joining, starting to listen in. In the first video I talked yesterday I talked about puppeting and what that is, and with your fourth, fifth and sixth dimensional parts of your soul that are external. For many now, there's a new big wave of people coming through, of course, now that are just beginning to take on the fourth dimensionals. There are many on the planet that's taking on the fifths, and they'll know what I'm talking about. And the sixth dimensionals are still in the background, although a few are playing out on the planet. So that was talking about puppeting the other day. What I want to talk about today is charging, what I would call battery charging. So as soon as one of these facets comes into you, it's either coming from the dark or the light, and with you guys in the twin flames, you're going to start to see like grey facets. They're not from the dark, they're not from the light, they're somewhere in the middle. It can be one of your fourth, fifth or sixth dimensionals. Because of the 144's particular way of being put together, they have what's called shades of grey, and they're a little bit different to most of the souls. So when a facet comes in, whether it's a fourth, fifth predominantly, or a sixth is even stronger of course, but when they come in, the first thing they're going to want to do is to stay alive. It's the best way to put it. It is a personality, not a soul. It's a piece of a soul, a consciousness that's been created into an ego, into a personality that your soul's created, as we say. And what it tries to do is really stay in position. That's what it wants to do. Once it's got conscious control of the body, it really wants to play out through the body. And as I say, this isn't something outside of you. This is a part of your soul, but it's to be brought under control. It's to be diminished, and it's to be merged back into the soul space, which is what we're all actually doing through ascension, one by one. And they will try to charge up. Now, there's lots of ways that they can try and charge, depending on whether it's a dark facet, a light facet, or a grey. Each one will have its own way of charging. So in a simple way, if it's a dark facet, you'll see it doing things that really do upset. They do in a very dark way. They will upset their partner, upset their family workers, co-workers, and they'll purposefully go out of the way to do things that upset. And what this does then is the other person that's involved, the other group that's involved that they're with, when they do that, when they talk about things that are very dark, things that are upsetting, things that are depressing, things that are very hard to hear, about death and about destruction and about misery and about depression and things like that. I'm sorry to talk that way, but that's kind of what they talk about. And what that does is drops your resonance and drops your vibration quite quickly. If we're not aware of what's happening, that part of somebody will then hook onto you and will begin to feed from your sadness, whatever they can create within you. So we've got to remember, we're not talking about something that's dark or evil. I mean, the word evil doesn't really make any sense in a bigger picture. But we regard it as in the 3D, 4D, 5D world, we regard that as evil. Upsetting somebody and stealing their energy. So we're talking about, you can call them energy vampires, there's lots of different things that they call them. But actually it's a part of your soul that's come in, and it just basically doesn't want to diminish, it doesn't want to, merge back into the body. It doesn't want to become part of the soul, it doesn't want its existence to end. But that is what we're doing with ascension. So that does have to happen. So if you get that from a dark facet, you'll get that kind of behaviour pattern, and it can happen in lots of different ways. It can do things to upset in lots of different ways that don't seem like the person that you know. Once somebody's consumed and a facet's come in, and it has control of the conscious mind, it can input the mind with whatever it seems to want to do for a short while, until the soul, which of course is much larger, begins to recognise what's going on from experiences that the person is having, to show it that that's what you're doing. Other people's input letting you know that that's what's happening. Your partner, and certainly with twin flames, you will see lots of twin flames. The runner chase things, again, is a perfect example of that. Where you see a facet come in, they seem to be a particular person, and then all of a sudden they're not. They're turning to somebody else, really quickly, and you're not really sure why they're doing that, why they're hurting you, why they're upsetting you purposeful. You know it's purposeful. It's not accidental. You know it's not accidental. It can be in terms of addictions, it can be in terms of behaviour patterns, it can be watching porn, it can be becoming violent, it can become abusive, it can become lots of things. And truthfully, from the light and the dark, it's very difficult to distinguish one from the other sometimes, because they both need to charge. They both need to get the energy to stay in position in the body, because what we talk about is the dark night of the soul. And I don't like that word at all, so I'm going to do a video on that, and it's going to be called Waves, because there's a much nicer way to understand that. But if you know what's going on, it doesn't have to be that. You don't have to have a dark night of the soul. If you understand what's going on, and you can talk to your facet, you can talk through that situation rather than it needing to take energy to try and stay alive. If you can explain to it, literally by watching a video like this, that facet will understand what's going on. It may put resistance up, but it will understand, and it will see in a bigger picture that it's time to fade. It's time not to exist in that format. And it's time for you to merge back into the soul and become part of what you really are, which is a beautiful soul. So we can't have a situation like this where the tail's wagging the dog, which is what happens when you become consumed. A small part of you from outside comes in and consumes the body and the soul for a short while. And it's purely because the energy from outside is coming in and merging with the soul. So as it does that, the energy not actively taints the soul, but it changes its resonance and vibration and its behaviour patterns. So the way we can do this, right? So there's lots of ways to understand first that that's happening. First and foremost, we need to find a way to, in a balanced way, use the energy that's already in that facet. So empty its battery basically. And at the same time we must replace that energy with the new energy, which is a more mature energy. So there's processes we can do to do that. So if we realise that a facet's come in, and you will know when a facet's come in. So you will see that actually starting to happen through your partner, perhaps there's some one of these traits or a couple of these traits. It depends if it's a feminine from the dark, or a masculine from the dark, or a feminine from the light, or a masculine from the light. You'll see the same traits, but the energy that they're trying to take from you, or take from each other, comes out the same. You end up completely exhausted. Both of you can end up exhausted if you're not careful. You can end up to a point where you're both getting very ill. Me and my twin flame, got very ill in different ways by not understanding what was going on. So I wouldn't like that to happen to anybody else, obviously. So, first and foremost, it's about, you'll see a lot of people starting to run, starting to exercise, starting to burn off energy, and these are people that are subconsciously, they're not really aware they're doing it, but in a conscious way, why they're doing it, should I say. But what they're actually doing is burning the energy that's coming on the facet. They're trying to remove that energy and trying to transmute it into good, healthy energy. Now, again, some are more extreme, and if that's the case, you may not find yourself being able to go for a walk. You may find yourself in a depressive state or an elated state where you won't walk, because you've got the other side. You've got the dark that's going, I won't walk, I'm not doing it, I'm depressed. And then you've got the light side saying, I'm not doing it because either I'm too good or I don't need to. So they've got bizarre, things that they say to why they won't do that. You can use salt baths. That will remove that energy. And you can use meditation, you can use Reiki, by removing the energy. But it's really important to say, these things are patches, these are temporary. Unless you change the behaviour of that facet, which is the next level of it, once you've learned to manage the energy that is in that facet, to run it off, to walk it off, to talk it off, whatever it is, right? There's lots of other ways, of course, there's always sexuality. That's the point now. When you realise how to manage it, you need to say, right, now we need to change the behaviour patterns, because as long as them patterns are there, it will keep recharging. This is the problem. It will just keep recharging. In which case you will stay consumed, you will not realise you're consumed. And it's never going to stop. It's a perpetuating situation. So we need to look at the behaviour patterns of it, of each facet as it comes in, recognise whether it's a fourth or fifth, or as I say from puppeting, a sixth dimensional from the back. Realise where this is happening, realise where it's coming from, and generally speaking its awareness level, the things it talks about, that part of you, will tell you whether it's a fourth, a fifth or a sixth. So the fourth are quite simplistic. They're aware at a certain level, a fourth dimensional level. So they become aware of, in dark understanding, you would say, they'll start becoming aware of conspiracy, of the guys that run the planet, of the 144 Dark Cabal, which I'll talk about them another time because they're very much misunderstood, as are all the 144 and the Twin Flames. And so you've got all of these different ones. You've got your fifth dimensional ones, where if you start to move, as I said yesterday, you're moving into energy work, you're moving into Reiki, you're moving into areas like that. And talking on a fifth dimensional level, and that's a facet that's coming, it's a fifth dimensional facet. You'll see from the things it knows, the things it's starting to talk about, whether it's a fourth, a fifth, or a sixth. A sixth dimensional will talk on a very different level. It'll talk on a universal level, it'll be aware at a universal level and above. And they are very complex, and they are very difficult to understand and change the programming of, and to merge them. The fifth, of course, are a little easier, fifth dimensionals, and the fourth dimensionals easier again. The fourth, we're going to be dealing with predominantly on the planet now. There's a huge wave of people taking on their fourth dimensionals now. And so you're going to see a lot of these problems where you see quite blunt behaviour. From the fourth dimensionals, predominantly it's quite blunt behaviour. It's not refined in any way. So again, you're seeing on the planet a lot more violence. You're seeing a lot more people being abusive, violent, within relationships, outside relationships, attacking people to create that energy. That's what they're trying to do, actually. They're trying to just create the energy to stay alive, to upset, to hurt, to do whatever they have to do. So once we understand now that the energy, that the beings come in, it's part of you, it's going to try and charge. You can drain it through, you can drain the battery through exercise, you can drain the battery through salt baths, you can drain the battery through Reiki. Also, it makes sense not to put the energy in accidentally. So if you're eating foods that are carrying dark energy, i.e. poisons, things that are not healthy for you, which we all know about doing the right foods and eating the right foods. But the reason for that is that you're basically recharging the battery through toxins. So if you're eating toxins, drinking toxins, taking toxins like drugs, they will recharge the battery of that facet, and all you're actually doing is lengthening its lifespan. That's actually what's happening, and you won't get control of the body and the soul again. So once we're kind of starting to understand now how it's being charged and how we can drain it, the main part is that you need to change behaviour patterns. You need to look at its behaviour patterns, look at what people are saying to you, look at what you're noticing you're doing yourself. You're noticing you find yourself apologising a lot. 2 hours later, when the soul comes back into position for a short time, then the facet will take over again, and it won't behave again that way, and you will see very secretive behaviour and very blunt behaviour all at the same time, depending on whether it's light, dark, feminine or masculine. Again, I'll talk a little bit about the fact that at this moment in time, the females have taken on masculine fifth dimensional energy. A lot of girls are taking on fifth dimensional masculine energy and fourth dimensional, and you've seen very masculine behaviour through the females that can be a bit upsetting for men because they're taking on the feminine. So we've got a serious imbalance at the moment where no one knows what's going on. You know, you've got a twin flame couple, one stuck on masculine and one stuck on feminine. You're seeing both of these negative traits coming through both, and you get a draining situation where they're trying to feed off each other to keep alive, and the body suffers. That's what actually happens. The body just gets smashed up. It gets absolutely exhausted. So if you can both understand this, you can both see in each other that there are major changes, rather than just a psychologist is certainly a way to go, but you must have understanding before you go of what's occurring. Once you know that, maybe you can't talk to the psychologist, they might think you're nuts, but as long as you know. And obviously the part that we're talking about here is to find out any damage, any insecurities, any fear within those facets that's creating that behaviour pattern within that part of your soul which has come in. It needs healing. That's the bottom line. It needs love. It also may need discipline. It also may need education, in terms of understanding. A larger awareness makes a facet, from any level, diminish. It recognises that what it thinks is not all there is. It realises that whatever it thought before isn't quite correct. And because of that, it starts to diminish, which is what you're after. It's not about destroying a facet, it's not about doing any of that. You want the abilities, the skills, the awarenesses within it you want to keep. That's going to be in your soul, it's going to be part of your multidimensional human makeup. But what you don't want is the behaviour patterns that cause a lot of problems because of the energy that's come in and we don't really understand it. So I think that will do for now. I'm in a beautiful place today, so I may do another one. And I think there's another one I'd like to talk about. The next one's about this, what we call the dark night of the soul. I think I'd like to remove that and get a much better understanding that, one, there's no need for the dark night of the soul, and two, the process of how that actually happens before it starts, and that way you can lessen it massively. You don't really need to go through this, what you call the dark night of the soul. Many people are not on the planet because of the dark night of the soul, because they didn't understand. Simply, nobody was saying what the dark night of the soul is. You know, unfortunately, there were a lot of videos on the net that put the fear of God into anyone that was to watch it, but there's no need for that. There's a very sensible way of doing what the video I'm going to call, you know, waves, because it comes in waves and we need to understand. So, thanks very much for watching, anybody. I hope anything that's been said has been helpful to somebody. If there's any questions, anything anyone would like to know, if I'm aware of it, I'll share it, of course. I'd like to do that. And I would like to say, of course, that everything that we all know, it's not us. It's not me as a person that's aware of this and been used as a channel for a higher consciousness that would talk through and try and help. Higher part of the soul, you could say, ultimately creator. So, thank you for stopping in. I'll see you soon.